Have you ever heard the term conversion tracking and wondered how it applies to your legal advertising? Stay tuned and let's talk about it. Hello, I'm John Delancey, founder of White Raven Technology, a bespoke legal marketing agency, and your host for the Legal Marketing Minute, our weekly video blog and podcast series devoted to discussing the tips, tricks, and trends in digital marketing that will help your law firm succeed online. This week, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about conversion tracking. We'll talk about why we're discussing it, what it is, how it actually works, and why you want to do it. So why are we actually talking about conversion tracking this week? Well, LinkedIn just announced that they have added conversion tracking directly into their advertising platform. And as we discussed last week in our entry on cost versus value in digital marketing, it's incredibly important to have the data that we need to find out what our return on investment or ROI actually is, because that's where the value lays. That's where we can make decisions on our marketing effectively. So, with LinkedIn having added conversion tracking, now all three of the most common major advertising platforms, especially those used by attorneys, support native conversion tracking, and so we can effectively use all three of these advertising platforms and decide how to continue forward based on the data we're seeing from them. Now, let's actually talk about what a conversion is. Well, first of all, a conversion in and of itself is basically when a person takes the action that you wanted them to from your ad. So most commonly this might be a form submission on your website or on a landing page on your website, requesting more information or to allow them to download an ebook, things like that. It could also be an e-commerce sale or a phone call. So common examples for attorneys advertising online might include, like we just said, a form submission requesting a free case evaluation. It could also be, if you are pursuing content marketing, it could be an opt-in where they submit their name and email address in exchange for an ebook. And it could also be a phone call, and we can actually track conversions by phone as well if it makes sense for your business. Now, more importantly than examples of conversions is the idea that conversions are a vital metric to ensure that your ads are actually effective and to improve their effectiveness over time so that you're getting more return for your investment. For instance, a conversion may not necessarily turn directly into a customer. This might be a longer sales cycle. So particularly in the case of content marketing, if you're just offering an ebook to your visitor, they may not immediately decide to sign on with you as a client for your estate planning services. They may still just be learning what estate planning actually is and whether they really need it, and then they might be ready for becoming a client with your law firm. Likewise, you might get thousands of clicks on an ad, but if you get zero conversions, then you obviously know that the ad is ineffective. It doesn't matter that people have seen your ad and your landing page if they're not responding to that. So tracking your conversions is an indication of what you need to change in your advertising, most often on the landing page itself, to make sure that your message matches and that you're targeting the right people and so forth. Another great thing to do with conversion tracking is if you can assign a monetary value to each conversion, you can more quickly and easily assess the overall effectiveness of your advertising campaign. So, for example, let's assume that for every new client that you get from your advertising, you expect to see $1,000 of gross revenue. And let's assume that you are converting every 4 lead conversions to a client. So a 1 in 4 client close rate. So knowing that, you can assign a conversion value of $250 to each and every conversion. So at a glance in your reporting tools and your analytics and so forth, you'll be able to tell in real dollars how much you can expect each ad or ad campaign to be making you. Now, how is conversion tracking done? Well, each network has their own version of what we call pixel code or tracking code. This is a little bit of software, a little bit of code that you'll add to certain pages on your website or all pages on your website, depending on the pixel, that enable those advertising platforms to track visitors once they've clicked on an ad to your website and to track what happens after they land there. So we typically think about two particular pixels or two segments of code that we would add to our website. The first would be a general tracking pixel that would be added basically anywhere on your website, everywhere on your website, in fact. This would enable the advertising platforms to track visitors on your website not only from ads, but also to create an audience that you can use to target visitors to your website who did not otherwise convert. So that's where we get into talking about remarketing and things like that. The second piece of code or pixel that we add is on the thank you page after a user has taken the action that you want them to. So let's assume that you have created a landing page offering a free case evaluation. So you would add this second pixel to the thank you page that appears after they have submitted their information requesting that case evaluation. And this will signal back to the advertising agency or advertising platform rather, that your ad converted, and so you'll see that number start showing up in your analytics on those platforms. So now that we know what a conversion is and why it's important, please take this advice. If you are running your own ads for your law firm, or if you have an in-house team running advertisements online for you, make absolutely sure that you or they are making the most possible use of conversion tracking. This is how we determine the return on our investment, whether our advertising is working and whether it makes sense to keep pumping money into it. Now, if you'd like more information about advertising for attorneys, we built a 7 or 8 part series on that very topic, going into detail about each advertising platform that we mentioned today, about split testing and analysis and budgeting and any number of other potential topics. That's a great series. Doesn't get into nuts and bolts so much, more rather an overview of advertising for attorneys. But it's a great place to start if you're just thinking about getting started with your own advertising or engaging an agency to do it for you. So until next time, happy marketing.